Tomlin is literally talking right now, and we will be able to hear some of it. I'm being told we can hear it right now. This is Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Steelers, talking about his quarterback situation. This is as we speak in Orlando.
We're not resistant to competition, but as I've mentioned several times of late, I just think it's appropriate to establish positioning as we get into this thing. And the term that I've used is Russell has pole position. And why do I use that term? Because during this time where we're not formally working, man, I just think it's beneficial. His experience in the National Football League, his process that's been honed and perfected, talking about over a 12-month calendar, is not only good for him, it's good for teams. It's good for receivers, tight ends, running backs, etc. All the things that people that are really committed to winning do this time of year. Russell has those resources, man, that structure. And so that's why I say he has pole position, man. It just creates a synergy that I think is good for this time of year. When it's time to compete, we get in training camp-like settings and going to preseason stadiums and so forth. Obviously, Justin will be given an opportunity to show his capabilities.
If Russell Wilson is going in there as the starting quarterback, if the plan is to make him the starting quarterback, and Justin is a player who doesn't have more than this 1 year left on his contract, how does he become the quarterback of the future? I'm trying to ask you the question this way. Is Justin Fields the quarterback of the future in Pittsburgh?
I think he is. I think Mike Tomlin has made it very clear with how he's talked about both quarterbacks. Contrast how Sean Payton, when he first came into Denver, and how he talked about Russell Wilson, saying he needed to stop kissing babies and stop doing this and doing that. You had a general feeling that he did not want Russell Wilson. Mike Tomlin has come out and he's praising him, talking about how he's not hungry, he's driven. I mean, I would love to sit down with Mike Tomlin and hear all these one-liners that he has because they're absolutely phenomenal. But what it means to me is that he's giving Justin Fields the opportunity to not have any pressure on him throughout this whole offseason. He gets a natural reset, and he's going to have the best roster, ironically, the best roster he's ever had as a pro as the backup in Pittsburgh, with the defense that is unbelievably led by T.J. Watt and an offense that has a two-headed monster at running back with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, and also a true number one in George Pickens. So I think for Justin Fields, his approach has to be everything they said about me coming into last year and these last 3 seasons. I have to take it personal now. It's not business. I got to go show them that I can do it, and I think he will.
I think that's right. The problem, as I see it, Hawk, is if Russell Wilson is the starter, and that's a pretty good team, which I think they could be, and Russell Wilson plays pretty well, which I think he very well has a chance to do, and doesn't get hurt, then maybe there's a world in which Justin Fields doesn't wind up playing or playing much this season. And then I'm not exactly sure where he is. He's 4 years into his career. He won't have a contract. How do we play that thing out in our minds, Hawk?
It's the NFL. And it is a perfect scenario, Greeny, because Mike Tomlin, another one-liner, is he wants volunteers, not hostages. This is a place that Justin Fields wanted to come to compete with Russell Wilson. Yes, the pecking order is important, but he wants guys who are there to compete. Justin Fields has come there for that. Not only that, Mike Tomlin says he wants guys that resist comfort. That has been Justin Fields' career. He has so much potential that even if he does not play this year, he's still in a great position because he's only 25 years old. He does have 3 to 4 years of experience in the NFL, and he's still at his peak physically with his arm power, his speed, his elusiveness, and all those things factor into what the future could look like for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the mentality that it's a problem that Russell Wilson is planted as the starter at this juncture in the season, if Justin Fields had a problem with that, he wouldn't be the guy for Mike Tomlin, because that thinking that I don't need to come in here and compete and unseat somebody and I shy away from comfort is the same reason why Kenny Pickett is now a Philadelphia Eagle.
I'm with that. I hear all of that. RG3, I guess I'll ask it just this way. Is there a realistic possibility in your mind that week 1, Justin Fields is the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh?
I don't think that that's going to happen, barring injury to Russell Wilson. But I will say this, Green. If everything goes to plan with Russell Wilson at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they make the playoffs and they go on a run and they win playoff games, because that's obviously their goal is to win the Super Bowl. But if they have a successful season, there's not going to be any reason for Mike Tomlin not to bring Justin Fields back as the backup, because Russell Wilson's not going to play another 7-8 years in the NFL. At least we don't think. So then the question becomes, how much can Justin Fields prove to the Steelers brass and Omar Khan that he can be that guy in the future, even without playing? That comes with how he comes into the building, how he prepares his teammates, and how he competes day in and day out. I think he can certainly do that because he has the potential, not only as an explosive passer, but also an explosive runner. I think he is very intriguing to them, but they have to be successful this year. He has to do everything he can to compete with Russ, but also help the Steelers win games.
That's the thing. I mean, Russell Wilson as the starter and Justin Fields as the backup is the easier decision to unmake. You can't unmake the other one. But the point is, once it's been unmade, which is to say Justin gets the start, then that's it. I mean, you would assume that will be the end for Russell Wilson there and maybe everywhere. So his career kind of hangs in the balance. And then Justin hangs in the balance. I called it a quarterback controversy at the beginning, Hawk, because everyone can walk into this thing with the best of intentions. But controversy doesn't have to be mean-spirited. But at the end of the day, unless Russell Wilson is playing out of his mind and they're winning games, there are going to be a lot of people, and I'm one of them, I'm raising my hand, who are thinking, put Justin Fields on the field. This kid could be a great player for the next 10 years if he gets the opportunity.
I think it's all about what the Steelers need now. Look at the quarterback play that they've had over the last 4 to 5 years. An improvement is Russell Wilson being even a slither of what he did a season ago. So I do think the barometer is just a little different than you and I, Greeny. And on top of that, it is going to be tough for Justin Fields to unseat Russell Wilson early in this season, because RG3 and I talked about this before the show. Do you know how easy it is for a veteran quarterback to go into a camp and have a quote unquote good camp? You know the concepts. You're there because of your experience. It's going to be really hard for you to go in there and play so bad that Justin Fields becomes the day one starter. So it's probably going to be, we need to see Russell Wilson in actual game action before we start to have those conversations.
But Dan, I mean, let's get you in here first because of the particulars. When you draft a rookie, you've got him under contract for 4 or 5 years. They have 1 year left with Justin Fields where they've got to figure stuff out, and he's going to have to figure out what his options are. If I'm Justin Fields, I need to get on the field here this year. So the idea that he's just going to be good sitting back and learning behind Russell Wilson sounds good, but doesn't actually make sense to me. Dan.
Well, they'll get to evaluate him, obviously, in the preseason and training camp and practices throughout the year, if, in fact, he is the backup. So I think they feel like they'll be able to make a good evaluation of Justin Fields, regardless of whether he or Russell Wilson is the starter. But, yeah, I think what you hear from Mike Tomlin there is excitement about the player, still 25 years old as a player, and still, as he said, oozing potential and oozing talent. So I think you factor in, and we've discussed this at length on this show, you factor in the cost of acquiring these guys and how low it was for both of them. I think that's part of the excitement, right? Like, hey, this is all upside for us being the Steelers. And if neither one of them were to work out, they're out of it free and clear after this year, and they can try something else. Obviously, they would prefer that it work out, and they have tough decisions to make on these guys at the end of the year. But I think what you're hearing from Mike Tomlin is sort of the excitement of a fresh situation and the potential it offers. I like two things I like about Mike Tomlin in the coach's breakfast setting. One, he's the one guy that you don't have to stand right next to hear, like, because of the way he projects his voice, you can hear him across the table. And two, he tells it like it is. Like, he's not hiding anything. Like, hey, if Fields were to outplay Russell Wilson in camp, sure. I mean, he could absolutely beat him out. Here's exactly why I've said what I said about Russell Wilson being the starter. It's this time of year, and I think there's value in that. So I think you heard the honest truth on that from Mike Tomlin, and he doesn't know how it's going to play out.
I agree completely. But RG3, again, I'm looking at it from the player's perspective. The quarterback, the Steelers have almost no downside in any of this. They've managed this brilliantly. Of that, there is no question. But both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, despite the differences in their age, it could be argued, are sort of playing for their careers now. I mean, there's so much hanging in the balance of what happens to them this year. That creates a competition / controversy / whatever you want to call it, whether Mike wants it to be or not. RG3, help me.
Yeah, and Gritty, and that's the brilliance of what Mike Tomlin is doing. He's trying to undercut that in a clear and obvious way. He knows that Russell Wilson comes in as a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and we got to put respect on his name, especially because last year he had a top 5 touchdown and interception ratio. But Russell Wilson has much more pressure on him than Justin Fields. If Justin Fields never sees the field this year, all he has to do is prove to the Steelers brass that he is worthy of them bringing him back in free agency. Russell Wilson has to actually go out and lead the Steelers to the playoffs, win a playoff game, and potentially go on to the Super Bowl in order for his career there in Pittsburgh to continue. So I think this is brilliant by Mike Tomlin. You don't want guys in your own locker room to be going about the whole offseason saying, man, wow, Russell Wilson looked great today. Oh, but Justin Fields, he looked great yesterday. All that's cut out now. They understand the tone has been set. Mike Tomlin said, this is our starting quarterback, and we're going to move forward with Russell Wilson being that guy. And the other thing I really heard from that situation and what Mike Tomlin said, Greeny, is basically that Justin Fields has talent. He might be younger or the same age as some of the rookies that are coming out this year in the NFL draft, and he just needs time. I love how Mike Tomlin is navigating this entire situation.
Right. Time is right. He just turned 25 years old. That part of it I get, but time in a different way is not really on his side. Hawk, jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what all of you said. It's the mix of Justin Fields only being 25 years old. He is battle tested. I think that's one part that's been understated. The turmoil he had to build at the beginning of his NFL career in Chicago with the coaching changes, the back and forth with offensive coordinators, players, battling injuries.